This episode of the Real Sales Manager podcast features a hugely interesting discussion with Richard Bounds, VP Sales Europe at OpenText, who shares his journey into sales management, being promoted at a very young age into a team where he had been a star salesperson. He describes the challenges of the first few months, especially how he brought around some more experienced salespeople who had themselves harbored ambitions for promotion into his position. We talk about the characteristics needed for success as a sales manager and the importance of understanding customer needs, managing business processes, maintaining a structured approach to sales management. Richard has great experience using tools such as Spin, Challenger Selling, and MEDPIC, and he reveals that it's how the sales manager implements, reinforces, and uses these types of approaches that are the real keys to success. This led us nicely into sales frameworks or cadence and what he has found to work, both managing the business on a weekly and a monthly basis, and also how he uses QBRs and ABRs to help manage teams over the medium and longer terms. Richard has a wealth of experience, ranging from initially with a large Apple dealer through some great organizations such as IBM and Software AG before joining OpenText, initially as regional VP for UK and Ireland, and then getting promoted to his current position. I've put a link to Richard's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Enjoy. Richard, thanks ever so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited and looking forward to this discussion. So what we're going to do is discuss sales management in general to start with, and then maybe we're going to talk a bit more about managing the business, cadence, ABRs, QBRs, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
But could I have a standard question to start with, which is just to ask you to tell us how you first got into sales management and what your journey's been.
Yeah, sure. So I started in sales at 21, basically working for an Apple dealership when it was quite exclusive at the time and very limited. And I couldn't particularly train the more successful salespeople within our dealership. And we're quite a large one, we're the fourth largest in the UK. And then there were a couple of people leave, including the manager. And at 24, the owner in the business asked if I would like to run the sales team. It's not something I put my name forward for or anything of that ilk. I wasn't even particularly hankering for prior to that. I was actually the youngest in the sales team as well. So it was quite a strange environment, but I've become sort of the top 80, which sounds a bit arrogant, but that was the situation. And we had a board that tracked it daily. We had a team of around 10 people, grew to 16. I only did that for around 3 or 4 years, but I really was thrown in at the deep end, working directly for the owner because the MD also left after a while. And then when I think the larger corporations came in and went with Sell Max, we eventually sold the business, and I was there with the owner all through the evening, selling the business to a larger PC dealership. I mean, pretty much left pretty soon after that.
Oh, okay. But my goodness. So from a very early age, if you don't mind me saying, and it's strange, actually. I get this quite a lot, that people have to be opportunistic. A sales management position comes about and you get asked to do it, and away you go. Interesting. I mean, I got into sales management fairly early as well when I was fairly young. Did that itself create any problems for you? Were there people, asking, why is this 24-year-old all of a sudden telling us what to do?
It did, to be fair, because there was at least 3 other people that actually wanted the role, and I didn't even ask for it. They approached the owner for it. Another really nice guy was in his 50s, and Another was a very competent sales guy, very, very technical, and they were challenging at first, but I kind of made both of those guys team leaders. I really listened to a lot of what they said at the time. They had an awful lot of experience. I don't think they were necessarily, they've never been managers, at any other time in their career. But they had a lot of experience, a lot I could learn and call on them from. I kind of made them my sort of deputies, really, for want of a better phrase, and it meant that they felt that they were fully involved in the team, and they were really helpful to me, whereas probably the first month they weren't. But it was a natural solution. We had 10 salespeople growing to 16. I needed to kind of ensure everyone had better coverage than just me.
Yeah. I mean, 10 is, in my experience, a big team anyway.
Yeah,
particularly if you're a first-line manager.
Yeah.
Yes, pretty. I mean, it depends how you organise it and stuff, but yes. Okay. So, you were promoted by the owner. What was he looking for? And I guess the question is also, with your experience now, what do you look for when you promote people into a sales management role? What are the characteristics, the attributes that are important to you?
Yeah, I think it's a she, actually. So when she promoted me to that role, she said that she wanted me to bring some new people in, similar to me, and which I think is not necessarily always the right thing anyway. But that was people that would be, I guess, young, keen self-starters, and that's really what we tried to do pretty quickly. So I hired about 5 people almost straight away. Majority of those did really, really well. I mean, I know in Fez I've kept in touch with a couple who have gone on to really good careers in IT sales and sales management, but they came from quite a wide sphere. I think one was selling leasing, one was an estate agent, one was in PC sales, so all quite disparate, but they'd gone on to do really well. And that was probably my first main task, really, was to get some new, fresh blood in, really.
Right. Okay. That's really interesting. And I mean, that's a big challenge in itself. And if you were in her position now and looking to, and I know you are, that, you're promoting people into sales management positions, what do you look for in them?
Yeah, and so we'll send out, I don't own open text because I'd be a lot wealthier. But I think in terms of new sales managers, because we are looking at the moment to point somebody to a new sales management role, and things that we'd be looking for would be, that drive and has proven track record. Typically in sales, I don't think it matters too much whether they've come from internal promotion, and giving people the opportunity, I think, is part of a good story for encouraging other people to develop their careers within a company like ours. And I think once they've got the right attitude, ask the right questions, and willingness to support their team, I think they're some of the key attributes that we would be looking for.
Okay. So I mean, through these podcasts, what I'm finding is when I ask that question, often I get this kind of response that it's much more about the character of people and maybe some basic skills like questioning and empathy, but it's that drive, wanting to help people, that seems to be important rather than, technical management skills. Is that kind of what you're saying, or?
Yeah, I think that's it's probably critical for any role, isn't it? I think that when we're looking for an AE and certainly for a sales manager, the character is the number one attribute. So, one of the guys in the team at the moment, he was with the British Army for quite a long period of time, and he fights for everything still today, and he has a real determination about him, and that is one of the strongest attributes. And I think if his team, and I can see how determined he is to make sure every deal gets closed, and that his team can follow that kind of lead as well. I think that sort of thing is critical as well.
Right. Okay. And then skills like qualification and the technical skills, the product stuff, all that can be added if they have the right attitude.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, particularly the technical side. I'd like the managers to come more out of the business value aspect and make sure that they and the sales team see the business value rather than the features and benefits. And they'll need to constantly realign the sales team on and making sure they're on track with seeing the bigger picture and the full value, the value of those differentiators against competitors, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think would be the key, what we really look for.
Yeah, sure. So going back to your first sales management role,
Yeah.
at 8, you had a big team. You had a couple of people there who were a bit disgruntled that you got the job. You got over that. You had to hire lots of people fairly quickly. So those were major challenges. What do you see? I mean, in the environment you're in today, when people get into their first sales management role, what do you see as the main challenges that they tend to face?
And then I think it's probably acceptance is probably the first one, and whether that's somebody that's been internally promoted or externally hired, I think people need to believe in you very quickly, and I tend to find the best way of doing that is getting to know the team as kind of individuals very, very quickly, one-to-one, get to understand what makes them tick, how they work, how they operate, how you can help them, to be more successful. And I think that's been one of the biggest aspects. I remember when I joined OpenText, it got commented, and it wasn't something that I'd particularly thought about before because I've always just done it by default. But I did the forecast call at the end of my first week, and my VP at the time commented that he was stunned that it sounded like I knew all the deals, understood the next steps, what needed to happen, what the issues were. So I think another tip, just to get to understand how the business works, is get on top of the forecast and knowing the forecast very, very quickly as well. And in fairness, my bosses are going to come in at a high level, since that they will do that quite quickly, as I think they all know getting on top of the forecast from day one is key.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting. You know, in the training that we do in Real Sales Manager, I start off by suggesting that people do focus on those forecast calls, getting on top of the forecast. And I always have a big debate because sales management, for me, is not just about the numbers. I mean, the numbers is the results that we're looking for. So I don't want to give the wrong impression, but I just find that if you're not on top of the numbers, you know, you'll maybe get a little honeymoon period and people will say, that's fine, you didn't understand the business, but it's going to come and bite you at some stage. It's just foundational that you're able to, you know, as you say, understand what the pipeline's looking like, who's struggling, what the customer, you know, just knowing what's going on, as they say.
Yeah, I think it helps you understand why customers buy, what trends you can see and spot those things very quickly. So you can obviously see the forecast data and you get on top of the data, but it enables you to get a level below that very, very quickly, I find.
Oh, okay. Well, that brings me to another interesting debate I have with lots of guests on the podcast, which is, you know, I think we all accept that as sales managers, we need to be data driven. You know, there is so much more data around now than probably when you started in sales management, certainly when I started. But at the same time, it's kind of those softer aspects of understanding your customers, understanding your salespeople, you know, just being able to look them in the eye and figuring out, do they really get it? You know, are they going to buy? Do the salespeople really understand what's actually happening? Where do you stand on that debate? Is it about the people or is it about just getting all the data?
I mean, the data is obviously critical, isn't it? Because it is a numbers game, and sales achieved, pipeline, are the main things that everybody's going to get measured on. But I think to the point we were saying before, a lot of it does come down to the people. And if the people have got the right attitude, the right behaviours, and they're doing the right activities, then I think you get behind them. You can see they're doing the right thing. Sometimes it's an aspect of time. Sometimes it may be territories might need a little bit of tweaking. Yeah. Also, in my card bottle, I've got quite a few people. I know it's an older phrase, but who are real classic hunters, and they're very good at new business, and that's all they're really interested in. And they go out and they win the new business, and they go on to the next one. And even though we're giving some of those guys some accounts to nurture and develop and try to improve their account management and their account development skills, they still just naturally lean to the hunting piece. And I think if someone's solely doing hunts, I know the numbers are the same, whether it's new or existing logos in most organizations. It is a different skill set and doesn't need, I think, to be recognized. That person you bringing in business that wouldn't otherwise have got. So I think that's certainly something that's important.
Okay. Is it skills or is it attitude as well, do you think?
I think in a couple of cases it's just attitude and maybe how they've, how they've started in their sales career, what they maybe did as the very first job. I'm probably just thinking of one or two examples of people that are like that while I answer that question. But we've certainly tried to help with the account development, account management side of a couple, and we've seen such margin in improvement because I just think that the thing that gets them up in the morning is winning that new logo and beating the competition and so on. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, so I keep going back to thinking about new sales managers, and we've talked a bit about kind of the challenges. What are the rewards? I mean, a lot of people listening to this podcast will be aspiring sales managers, and we certainly encourage them not to just automatically go for the job, but to really think, do they want it? There are lots of challenges. In your view, what's really good about sales management? Why should people want to do it?
And then, well, I like it when people come for help, and if they come for help, they think you can actually help them, and that's quite a nice feeling. And if you can see them then being successful or changing slightly, maybe their behaviours based on something that you've said, or trying something slightly different within a sales situation because of something you've steered them to, then that's really great. And I know that if you see, maybe that other people have perhaps questioned, but you've got a lot of belief in them and then come good, that's a very good feeling. Or new hires as well, where you see them succeeding, or we've also got examples of people that started at junior level, maybe selling smaller solutions for say open text, and then moved up to become an enterprise AE, and in a couple of cases being the top 2 or 3 eating globally from those situations. That's really good to see.
Right. So it's about people development and helping people. Yeah. And do you think as a sales manager you have to be, a super salesman as well, or is that not important?
I think you have to be a good salesperson anyway, because I think you've got to enjoy sales and being part of the selling process. I think there's a tricky balance when you go in and do you take over the sale. I've always believed that the AE's already got established relationships. They should do sort of the intros and set some objectives and continue that relationship. And I'm there to kind of support the discussion. And sales managers are there to maybe raise the level of the conversation, perhaps to business value, or to how it affects the company that we're selling to at a slightly different level, maybe a bit more strategic rather than in the weeds of the solution. Potentially help with negotiations, drive some speed and urgency to it, and those sort of things. But I don't think, in fact, anyone in my team's a first-time manager or me gets involved in sales and completely takes it over. I think you'd be working as part of the team with the rest of the group, that's AEs, but everybody else that supports a deal in complex IT sales.
Right. Okay, but again, for new sales managers, in the coaching that I do, often they struggle. You talked about getting acceptance, getting credibility, and I think many people do struggle with that over the first few months. And often the temptation is to say, well, the way I get credibility is I know I'm a good salesperson. I may be the best salesperson. I don't think that's necessarily, you don't have to be the best salesperson to become a
Yeah.
sales manager, but you've got to be a good salesperson. So that's how they think they can add value. And holding yourself back, adding value in different ways is I think a struggle for many people in that first I call it the honeymoon period, 3 to 6 months, whatever it is, and they feel that to earn their spurs, as it were, what they can go in and be that super salesperson, but it's, as you say, that's probably self-defeating.
Yeah, and I think you also can't go there with the sole objective of me listening to the salesperson with you to helping and coaching them. I've been in a situation with probably one of my first managers who turned the chair to look at me whilst I was selling to the customer. And then you could see on his face he didn't look that happy at something I must have said or what have you. And, I think, yes, you always want to come out and review the call, what was good, what was maybe less good, or what could be improved for the future. And always do that, but do that as a two-way conversation, not necessarily just the manager telling the salesperson. So,
absolutely. And we could talk a lot about coaching, but yeah, in a nutshell, that's certainly my view of what it should be. But a manager actually just turned their chair and looked at you and didn't take any part. Goodness, that's...
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. But that I've spoken to him since like 20 years on, and that was his first sales manager's job. And in fairness, he was a really tough, very aggressive manager, but he taught me a lot. And what's interesting, the majority of that team that he hired was from my sort of job after the Apple dealership have all gone on to do really well. A lot of them are sort of CROs and so on, and a lot of that is the basic grounding that he gave us and the importance of process. He was obsessed with sales process, milestone stages, etc.
Okay, well, let's come on to that in a second.
Sure. Yeah.
So you obviously learned a lot from him, particularly as a sales manager, but also as a salesperson, as a sales director. How have you developed yourself? Are there particular books that you enjoy? Is there training you've been on? Is it picking things up from individuals? How have you kept progressing yourself?
Well, I think as football managers or aspiring football managers always say that they would look to people that they've worked for over the years and take the best bits of each of them. So I definitely think I've picked up things from different managers along the way, and I can apply those. I definitely think I can't think of any of the managers I've had that I would wobble myself on and even say I'm similar as a personality, but they definitely all taught me lots that I can apply. I think book-wise, I loved spin selling years ago. That was a massive one for me. I also enjoyed Challenger Sale. And we also did a coaching around coaching people to apply in a Challenger model. That was one of the most valuable trainings I've done. So it was taking you through the Challenger model, but obviously how to ensure the team that are adopting that. And we really similar at open text about Medic or MedPick. That was very useful as well. So how to coach the sales team to adopt the methodology, but also to apply it, and for it just to become a kind of intrinsic behavior and everything that they do, and how they qualify, how they discuss customers' requirements and everything around that. So that's been powerful. And book-wise, I think you mentioned Radical Candor. I haven't read it yet, but I'm about a third of the way through Radical Candor. I need a holiday or something to finish that. And my last boss at Open Text, who's now very high up at vehicle. She recommended the power line vulnerability by Bernie Brown, and that was actually really
Okay.
very good. So
Yeah. Okay. So you do read, and I mean, those are all classic books that have a lot of value in them. Okay. And it's interesting, because we can talk about Medic or MedPick or there's lots of other models out there, and we can talk about how good they are, but it's how you apply them, how you implement them, that's probably more important than, is it Medic or MedPick or whatever.
And I think that's what's important about the 2 training courses that we did on the back of that. It wasn't what is the Medic. Well, part of it is what is Medic and what is Challenger and what's the model and where you sit within it, but it's how to support the adoption of those. And I think that making the jump from the methodology to the adoption is the critical bit. And then using it within sort of deal reviews, but then just making sure it's part of everybody's behaviour every day, so we're always understanding the pains and the actual real detail around the decision criteria and things of that sort. So
okay, so what were the key takeaways for you from those different trainings around how you implement these things? Is it just about making sure you use it, or is there other things that you can do?
Well, I'll come up with a MedPick one because that was more recent. I think that the key bit was you don't have to you don't have to cover every letter and check you got the answer for all of them. I mean, to get a deal, you typically wouldn't do, but for me, when we're doing a deal review, it's maybe picking 2 or 3 of them and just ensuring that we really understand what the pains are, what the value of those pains are, what happens if they don't do anything. When it goes for a decision, what is the decision process? What other things are they looking at? How they decide this project over an alternative, and it's just making sure people understand a higher or more granular level of detail.
Right. Okay. That's it. That's interesting, because I mean, a lot of sales managers will use whatever tool, but just religiously go through, MED. But what you're saying is just dig down a little bit deeper on 2 or 3 points that seem to be the key points for that particular deal, rather than just surface everything.
Yeah, that's not really what I would do. And also there's certain ones that perhaps certain things that are more important at different stages. So early on in the sales process, it's important to understand that you've got a good sponsor or champion, and what's their win from it, and to understand if the opportunity is real or not. In my head, I like to understand why the customer's doing it and what's in it for them as a business, how it helps them, and where it sits in priorities. Perhaps some of the things around decision process, the paperwork trail, that can come later. So
right. Okay. So if we just think a bit more about how you manage that business, what I mean, without giving any trade secrets away, what kind of meetings and processes have you got in place with your sales teams? What do you find works?
So I would have a few. I think it's something, if you're a new sales manager, I think you've got to have a bit of a structure so that's consistent and people understand what that is. So I think the things for me, I would have a weekly team meeting, especially as a first line manager, and I would involve everybody that you need to help your business. So I would involve maybe that ADE, management, marketing, pre-sale, solution consulting, maybe professional services, deal management, whatever you have within your business is interested in the state of your business and helps you grow it and has an opinion as well. So I think that weekly is one of the definites. I think a forecast call, you can't go about a forecast call. I do that weekly, and then I have a pipeline call, because I think it's important to treat the 2 things separately. The pipeline call would look at the longer term business, and that would be more a monthly basis. And then
Okay.
I would have a one-to-one. Then I do this bi-weekly.
Okay.
Maybe at the beginning it might be useful to do that even weekly. It depends on the size of the team and everything, but I do
Sure.
that bi-weekly. And to be fair, sometimes that's a bit more informal. Informal, not quite therapy, but it's more just like what's happened the last couple of weeks, the plans for the next couple of weeks, improvements, issues, how they're doing, that sort of thing.
Yeah. How long do those typically last for?
One quite bad. I've only got 30 minutes for those, but I do. But I think you should allow 45 for those at least.
Okay.
Really, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nicer in person. I think we've all perhaps got out of a habit of doing some of those things in person. They would always be in person before COVID, but I think since COVID, they then became all digital, and then we're still doing too many, in my mind, digitally. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge debate around all of that, but clearly face-to-face is better. Your weekly sales meetings, if I go back to those, are those face-to-face or virtual?
They are a bit of a mix, to be fair. Again, they were always face-to-face. When I was first time around running the UK, we had them on a Monday at 10 o'clock. And what is quite nice, I know that the guy that's now running that team still does them on the Monday at 10 o'clock as well.
Right.
I mean, we don't all have to do the same things, but it just worked quite well for us. And that was a day that was in the office. And then I guess since COVID, it's been more the sort of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that's in the office or with customers more. So, I think they tend to be digital now. And when I do my team, because they're spread across Europe, they are digital. But then quarterly business reviews and annual business reviews are typically in person, face to face.
Okay. I was going to ask about those maybe in a second. But so again, a lot of people push back, particularly on the weekly calls, to say, do we all have to be here, even online? As we go through all the deals, do I have to sit through it all? Do I have to have all the pre-sales people there for, I don't know, an hour or two, whatever it takes? But it seems you see a lot of value in that.
Yeah, well, I think I would definitely have all of the A's, and I'd have maybe the depends how you're structured, but the solution consulting manager we would have at least person, not necessarily all of the SIMs, but they would come typically to maybe more of a quarterly type meeting. But the weekly one, I know I do think it's good to have everybody there because you can learn something from other people. I think sometimes people in sales, we're all interested in our bit of the business and can tune out of some of the other discussions, particularly if it's very sort of forecast focused and it doesn't affect me as an individual. But you can still spot a lot of trends. I was on a call with our most experienced team yesterday. So they're our major accounts team. All of them very tenured AEs. And one of them, we've got a new solution around the Internet of Things. It's quite exciting, and he's talked to a very big customer about it. But it's all about the use case. So everyone suddenly was like, "Oh, what's the use case? How are they applying it, and how does that help them as a business?" And it's that sort of information that all of the A's were like jumping on that and trying to find out more, and that you just don't get if you don't get them on a call listening to some of the opportunities and discussions that they're having.
Yeah, and you can't agenda those items. I mean, they just pop up. You suddenly discover there's a use case that's interesting to people, rather than let's have a meeting about use cases, which is okay. Well, I think again, the challenge that a lot of sales managers, new sales managers face is, yes, we want a weekly meeting. I think a lot of people do now get the difference between a forecast call and a pipeline call, but that's still education for some people. And then we're going to talk about ABRs and QBRs, and you want one-on-one. So you end up with over half your time spent on pre-planned meetings.
Yeah.
And so some people push back against that. And yeah, I'm a believer you do need some framework, because otherwise it's just chaotic. But it's getting that balance right, which I think we all struggle with a little bit.
Yeah, well, and I think it has to be a bit of variety in this as well. It can't be the same thing. I mean, obviously a forecast call and a pipeline call probably is slightly different. You have a pretty rigid structure, to go through the
Yep.
deals maybe in a size sequence or what have you. That the
Right.
weekly team meetings is also an opportunity for any successes and bit of congratulations to be shared and things like that to create a bit more of a team feeling that we're in it together, and one person's success helps others as well. So,
Right. Yeah. So an opportunity for some motivation as well. Yeah. So
yeah,
can I just ask about ABRs and QBRs? And um, so from your perspective, and I guess you are subject to ABRs and QBRs with your boss, and I guess you also have your teams doing them for you. So I guess you look at it from both perspectives.
yeah.
What's the purpose of a QBR and or an ABR?
Um, I think that the point is really just to kind of get an understanding of the state of the business. So it probably goes back a tiny bit to the very simplest, even just doing a meeting and reviewing the meeting afterwards is what's working well, what's not working well, and what do we need to improve. And I think you're doing it in a more structured way in a QBR or an ABR, and you're doing typically a deeper dive, but at an individual level within the team or region or AE level, as well
Yeah.
as doing it as an overall for that group.
Right. Okay. So just an opportunity to kind of take stock where you are, to say what's going well, what's not going so well. Do we need to replan? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, mainly I think there's an opportunity if we would typically have quite a structure to it. That's maybe have the introduction, and I think whoever's leading the QBR would typically do that with a state of the business, typically looking at the last quarter or last year if it's an ABR, obviously, and then doing that for each of the teams. What happened, why it happened, what we can learn, what we could change, maybe some wins, etc. And then look at the next financial period, whether you look at that a single quarter or maybe 3 quarters out, or probably some combination of the two. And then look at what's the plan for success, what help you need, how we'll win, what do we need to improve, and then maybe there's a chance to look at the bigger picture as well, because normally with a QBR and ABR, a bit like the weekly meetings, you get some of the wider team as part of that. So look at some of the goals, trends, what's happening in the market, what some of the challenges are for our business, etc. as well.
Right. Okay. And do you run a fairly rigid structure of, these are the slides you have to present and this is the information, or is it more free flowing for you? Where's that balance?
Yeah, I mean, we do have an agreed sort of structure or template, but I'm quite open to let people interpret. There's maybe a couple of slides that I would ask to keep in there.
Right. Okay.
Maybe just the sum. So you've got a consistent summary of the deals or the way, the last and maybe the forecast. But I like to let people do their own, because it lets you see how they think about things more clearly if they perhaps do a little bit more free format. It's also a bit more interesting for everybody involved in that. They're doing it like that. Oh, okay, that's a nice idea. Like we've got one guy who every quarter presents his deals in a triangle that takes him ages to kind of manipulate and think about where they are in the triangle, how they're moving. It represents a funnel. It's how he's always worked. And I kind of like that slide. I know it's how the individual works, and I can speak to him about his deals and where they sit within the funnel. And yes, it might not be the corporate structure and approach, but that's he will go away and adopt his opportunities into that funnel anyway. So I can then understand how he thinks, how he's working through that process. Yeah.
And so Well, I'll ask the question: is the think about a QBR? Is it for your benefit as the reviewing manager, or is it for the benefit of the person who's presenting it?
I think it's probably both, really, isn't it? I mean, sometimes nobody likes doing them because you're going to have to demonstrate accountability, aren't you? And everyone's accountable, and everyone wants to be held accountable. And that would go for me and everybody else, my boss, I guess, doing his QBR and people that would work as part of my team. So it's not necessarily everybody's favourite task. It's a good one when you've had really good quarters. So that's obviously a benefit. But I think it is a bit of a mix, and if you can glean some things that your peers or the team are doing that could perhaps be applied elsewhere. So, for example, if I do a QBR with a French team and I'll spot trends or opportunities that they're seeing that we're not maybe in Germany or the UK or something, then I'll be and relaying that message. And it's the same for if I'm an AE and I can see one guy one lady selling a lot of pipeline on a particular topic that you've not even explored yet. I love to see other AEs asking questions around that, and I keep it as quite an open format. It's not just from the manager to ask questions. It should be a pretty open discussion because you don't have exclusivity on brains, really, do we? So
absolutely not. So it's about communication. It's about sharing best practice. It's about helping people to stand back, spot the trends. Because again, I talk to new sales managers, and a lot of them, the first couple of times around, they're just scared. What is this thing? I've got to present to my manager, maybe their manager, other senior execs, and so they focus on getting the slides right and going through the process rather than thinking, what are we all trying to get out of this? Which, as you get more experience, maybe that's then becomes easier. You've got a platform and you can start to work around it. But just helping new sales managers in particular to think about, this is what we're really trying to achieve here. It's clearly it's for the benefit of the boss and the organization, but they should be getting a lot out of it as well.
I think that's a very good, and you kind of sometimes get into a cycle of doing quarterly business reviews without standing back sometimes and just think, actually, just recap, what's the purpose of this and what's the objective and what does everybody get out of this and want to get out of it, and perhaps have a little bit of a reset from time to time. So I think that's a good shout.
Yes, and it's again interesting. If I get involved with a new sales manager, typically there's some kind of process in place. So they'll have weekly meetings or whatever set up. They'll have QBRs, and so to start with, they just go with the flow, whatever's there. But then you ask, so what's the purpose of this? And it's amazing in so many places. It's, well, we just do it because we've always done it, and particularly in bigger organizations like OpenText, there is that danger that you just get into a corporate way of doing things. You spend half your time just going from one meeting to the other without actually thinking what we're trying to achieve.
Yes.
And that's particularly for new sales managers.
Yeah. I think that, like, say, OpenText, my manager and the managers that have in the team will all adopt a pretty similar approach. They sort of put a structure in place, but there's flexibility to sort of apply your own interpretations. I think everyone's, without actually, it's always an unspoken thing that you get some of the hidden nuggets of how people work and think that you don't perhaps get confining everybody to these slides that are all the same. And as I said before, it keeps everybody a bit more interested. You don't know what's coming next, do you? So
yes, and certainly in your position where you're going from one QBR to the next, your comment about making it interesting for you as the reviewer, I think is really important. Okay. Anything else that you would share around, particularly thinking about the cadence you put in place, the processes, and any other inputs you'd have for new sales managers around those areas, Richard?
no, I think it is quite big for a new sales manager just to lay out what they're going to put in place from day one, but also perhaps have a plan that if, sometimes they're on holiday or they're custom meetings, what happens to those meetings then? And say for me, I was a first-time manager running the UK. I either got one of the outlet AEs to run it or the solution consulting manager who I was very, close to. We had a good working relationship, and it brings a slightly different dynamic to the knitting. So those always carried ahead. Same with the forecast call will typically proceed weekly, whether you're there or not. But then other things like the one-to-ones, you just defer those or obviously it's important you keep the structure and be consistent and everything, but sometimes the one-to-ones might be quite brief, but on other times you might need a little bit longer and book a separate session as well.
Right. Okay. So again, some flexibility depending on the exact situation, but
yes,
but you've got a process. And okay, so a lot of people do when they go on vacation, have a deputy who kind of stands in, but you could also have, somebody to deputize for you in the forecast call, somebody somebody else to deputize in the weekly meeting. You don't have to just have one deputy. You could split it up maybe.
And then it's maybe different people an opportunity, and as I say, but particularly with the weekly meeting, I think they were quite different when I wasn't there. Not in a bad or good way, but I just think it was a different sort of meeting. It maybe gave people a chance to share opinions. Maybe if the solution consulting manager, it might be more of a technically oriented meeting where people were discussing the challenges in much more detail or something than they might normally have done. But
I don't know about you, but it always struck me whenever I was away, the numbers always went up. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't say that's true. I don't really want to say that's true. It doesn't really seem to happen that some, particularly a deal that you've been working on for ages, you're even doubting it's going to come in, suddenly comes in when you're away or something like that. So I don't think actually often makes too much difference to that at times. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe because you put everything in place to make it happen, that's perhaps what I'd like to think.
Well, I think that maybe you do, as the manager, you do want to get everything squared away before you take your 2 weeks off or whatever, and that maybe just forces some things to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, we could talk like this for hours and hours. There's so much good stuff coming out, but if we try to summarize, for a new sales manager, from your perspective, what are the kind of top 2 or 3 or 4 tips that you would give them, things for them to focus on?
Well, I think to know the team very quickly, to know the forecast and the opportunities. I think it's a couple of these I've covered before, and I think to build the brand as well. So we talked a bit about getting credibility quickly, but what is it that you stand for? How am I going to help? And actually just getting stuff done. If you say, okay, I'm going to do this, or we're going to check, I'll connect you with XYZ person, or whatever. Can I speak to that person within the customer organization? Just always make sure that you do it. And I think that's pivotal, because I think for me, that's always been one of my biggest things. I think is if I would say I would do something, I can't think of many uses when I don't, and that's really important to me. And I think that's something that it's important for the managers I've had that I respect and so on, that they do that as well.
Absolutely. It also means you have to be very careful about what you commit to, and sometimes
there's a bit of that. Yes.
Do that. Yeah. Okay, but as you say, it's gaining credibility, gaining respect, which is going to be critical for all new sales managers.
Yeah, and maybe that is possibly also one of my weaknesses as well, is that I can try to do too much, and that's been commented before. And especially if you're new, you've just got to prioritize those prioritizations and what's the most important thing, what's going to move the needle the most of the if you've maybe got 5 go-to-market initiatives, focus on the top that's pretty obvious, isn't it? But look at what's going to bring in the most revenue most quickly, and even just map it out, do some grids, etc., opportunity analysis, and step away from a rushed decision and just think about it for a little bit, do that analysis, and then go from there.
No, absolutely. But you say it's obvious, but I know, a lot of new sales managers are kind of caught in the headlights a little bit. There's so many new things. They're trying to add value everywhere, and you can overpromise. It's difficult to see the wood for the trees. With experience, it becomes second nature, but it's focusing on just one or two things and maybe getting advice around what those one or two things should be.
Yes, and I think as a new sales manager, whether it's you or direct manager or somebody else that you trust and respect, I think have some mentor, or it's a coach or a mentor, but somebody you can also go to. I think sales management has changed obviously a lot, and I think it's changed probably more the last 3 or 4 years than at any time. And I think with everybody sat at a desk way more than they were before, they're immediately accessible with Teams and with going from one call to the next. But actually, you do need to allow some time to just take yourself away from the the immediate calls to do some of that thinking. And if you have got the 5 go-to-market initiatives, to do a bit of analysis on what the market opportunity is, speak to some other people around that, and make some decisions on what their number top 2 or 3 priorities, because you just can't do everything. And
but as you say, you need to carve out that bit of time for you to think it through before you can start acting.
Yes.
Excellent. Richard, thank you ever so much. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners, viewers will have learned a lot as well. So just thank you ever so much for that. And I'm sure we'll be following this up at some stage.
My friend, it's really enjoyed speaking to you, Steve, as I always have done. So that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Cheers for now then.
Okay. Bye.
So Richard, as a bonus, another question for you. So what's the biggest mistake that you made, maybe as a new sales manager, and what did you learn from it?
I think it's probably, I'm going to go right back to my first sales management job. And I think I was very much thrown into it. I was probably is there such a thing as a natural salesperson, but didn't understand the process because I was still only very, very young. And I think I just expected everybody to just pick things up and sort things out for themselves and use their own initiative. And actually, what I found is that people were demanding more by way of it's not what you describe now as a playbook. And there's a go-to-market strategy, ideal customer profile. They want the tools that we have now. And at the time, we didn't have that. And I didn't really understand why they would even need that. And that was a sort of frustration for me. And I think I also listened perhaps too much to the owner of the business at the time, and I did a couple of things I didn't feel that comfortable with. There was a person that wasn't performing that well. It was natural. I think it was very different times, but I literally packed their box, met them in the car park, and took their keys off them. And I think there's just a few things like that you just think you've got to do the right thing for yourself and your own brand and reputation. And I would have handled that the way that I would have handled it, not how I was told to handle it. And I think from there, my next role, the critical thing for me was a company that educated you on sales process, structure, methodology, value-based selling. And that's why I joined at that time CompuWare, which was that's absolutely key to everything that they did.
Right. Oh, okay. But the critical thing there was you were led too much by your boss without doing what you knew to be the right thing.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I can. I think, a really valuable lesson for
Yeah.
lots of new sales managers.
And I think has the bravery just to spend a little bit longer to challenge it and question it and debate what you think is the right thing to do, and then agree maybe a different outcome, but or at least one you'd be happy to support rather than reluctantly going ahead with something that you didn't particularly like at that time.
I can certainly identify with that. As a new sales manager, I think, yeah, there are occasions where I did that and I should have been stronger. It is difficult when you're new to the job.
Yeah, great.
Excellent. Well, as a bonus, I think that's a very valuable lesson for all of us. Okay, so thanks for that.
No problem. Pleasure.
If you are an aspiring or new sales manager in complex business to business, or you know of somebody who is, you may want to go to www.realsalesmanager.com. That's realsalesmanager, all one word.com, to learn about our unique blend of training and coaching to help become as effective as possible, as quickly as possible.